the blockchain really is the first time we actually have a technology that can allow us to organize ourselves as humans without the need for centralized control systems.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of White Mirror. Double figures, Si, not bad. Just before we get going, we've got a really interesting presentation today. Si's going to go a bit historical on us, just back 5,000 years. We're going to cover it in half an hour, you know, but just before we go into that, please like, subscribe, and share our content. As always, it's really massive for us, and we want to create our own little community where we can help everybody. So yeah, get involved. That would be great for us. Thank you. Si, over to you, mate.
Yeah, Dave, I enjoyed the OGs and the cypherpunks episode that we did. We did a couple on that. So I thought we'd do something a bit similar on, covering a bit of history, a bit further back, as you say, this time. So this and maybe the next couple of episodes will be called End of Empires.
What have the Romans ever done for us?
And the dawn of decentralization.
Oh, I say, I like it.
Yeah. I don't think many people understand perhaps the magnitude of the era that we're currently living through. Blockchain, in my opinion, Dave, isn't just a technology. It's a fundamental shift in history. And perhaps it will even be, when we look back, an evolution of humanity. That's maybe what I'm going to put a case forward for in this couple of episodes.
Okay, well, we both believe that. That's why we started this. This is huge. Decentralization is huge.
Big, huge.
So let's take a rapid journey through time from where we are now. Let's go back 5,000 years. And eventually, we're going to culminate in the collapse of our current global empire. But, yeah, don't panic, Dave. No one needs to worry about this.
Hasn't happened yet.
I guess we just need to understand exactly what is happening and what's going to take its place. But let's look at a bit of history.
Okay.
Sumerians. The Sumerians. So to understand, why decentralization is such a big deal, we need to understand a bit of history. We probably need to understand a bit about human nature, corruption, greed.
He's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy!
And the need for humans to try and control other humans, which has always been a major issue, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing it all now. We're seeing it all happening real time.
Yeah, so basically every single empire has collapsed again and again. And the Sumerians, basically from around the year 3100 BC, their empire lasted until about 2000 BC. But because of over-centralized temple states, draining farmers and taxes and debt, we saw the collapse of the Sumerian Empire. But as I said, I'm just going to move through quite briefly. Babylon was exactly the same. Also an empire that collapsed. They sort of lasted from around 1800 BC to 539 BC. But again, it was sort of like royal control of law, wealth, and the whole civilization became brittle under corruption. And again, we see corruption sneaking into centralized systems. The Roman Empire, exactly the same again, overextended itself between 27 BC and 476 AD. Again, imperial overreach, the overambition of rulers.
Throw him to the floor.
Currency debasement, where have we seen that before? Debasement of currency. We'll talk about that over the next couple of episodes.
You mean quantitative easing? Is that what you mean? Isn't that a friendly term for it?
Exactly. That's what we kind of call it these days. But it's been going on. I think they got the idea from the Romans.
Mm-hmm.
And bloated
Absolutely.
bureaucracy. Again, we got that idea from the Romans, and
Yeah.
so carrying on the medieval European multiple empires, I guess, really. So they were sort
Yeah.
of lasting between 500 AD and 1500 AD. And again, it was sort of like the church, feudal lords, centralized both like spiritual and economic authority. And, if any shocks came along, and they did, the plague, peasants were revolting, fiscal strains, etc., caused those various empires to collapse.
Hmm.
Fast forward a little bit, and we're looking at colonial empires between sort of 1500 AD and the 1950s, all the way up till relatively recently. The British Empire, the Spanish and Portuguese
Yeah.
empires, mid sort of 1500 to the middle of the 20th century, I guess, where sort of,
Uh-huh.
you have the mother countries like for example, England or Spain, running highly centralized extractive systems that became unsustainable, costs and rocketed and resistance from nationalist movements and all of that sort of thing. And eventually the colonies broke away, when the imperial control failed, as it inevitably was going to. And
Okay.
that kind of brings us to the 20th century superpowers that we've been that everybody's aware of now. And
Okay.
again, we sort of know all the problems that we have here. And I'm sort of putting a case for the fact that this is collapsing in real time as we speak.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's amazing when you've gone through all of these empires and they've collapsed with overexpansion, natural disasters, the wealth, the currencies and all that sort of thing. And we could easily go down with just arguing about the wrong pronouns on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got a few
Hurty,
different
hurty words. Hurty words are going to
dirty
take us
words.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that everyone knows the problems that we've got, the sort of hyper complex financial systems that we know. Really, this is I put 2008 here on there as sort of being sort of the point where I think the GFC that we talked about in the last episode,
Yeah.
Dave, being one of the kind of marking one of the final years, I think, of this centralized global empire that we're living in right now.
I like
And
that you put 2008 Psy. I think I like that. Because to me, this doesn't, at the moment, it feels like we're living in a non-reality. Everything's so crazy.
yeah,
And that to
exactly.
me is kind of around the time when things started going tits up, right?
And if it wasn't 2008, you could even say it was 2019, 20, COVID and
Well,
all
yeah.
the things.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
things have definitely changed a lot. We certainly have ridiculous amounts of corruption that people, I think, pretty much realize is rampant
Perhaps,
these days.
perhaps not enough people, but yeah, I agree.
Right. There's one thing that you might have noticed about these various empires on the little colored graph there. They're getting shorter and shorter. And I would say that they're more intense. The empires covered larger portions of the earth. And yeah, like it's just shorter, more intense. And literally, these are the years that these empires are supposed to expand, and we can see a clear trend towards this kind of, shortening bell curves that you can see on the graph there, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it really is. Yeah, you go right back to 3000 BC. That's a big one. There's a couple of
Right.
big ones there, but look at this little one, 1944 to 2008. Wow.
It's
Yeah.
tiny, it's very
Yeah.
intense, and a lot happened. You talked about tech before, and yeah, I think this 20th century superpowers um, tech really did start to go exponential at that point in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I kind of want to know if I'm saying that, you know, even the 20th century superpowers are in the process of collapse, even into the beginning of this 21st century, it begs the question, what's next, right?
Absolutely. It feels very volatile at the moment. You know,
Right.
that everything's so volatile. It feels like it could all just go with the next software update. You know, it's
Right.
yeah.
The well, I totally believe the decentralized world is next. But Dave, it's not even an empire. I think we're kind of ridding ourselves of empires at this point in
Even
time.
to that point, you think that that's that big, yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Instead of sort of like one throne, I think there's millions of linked communities, systems, and protocols that we've talked about. Basically,
Yeah.
decentralization, as we're talking about all the way through this series and White Mirror generally, is, you know, decentralization is a totally new architecture.
Yeah.
Trust is being built across networks. It's not stored in one place. We're having more resilient networks that can fail, they can heal themselves, perhaps reconfigure without dragging everyone down with them. I think that's the difference between brittle, centralized, control systems and all the empires we've talked about, and a living, decentralized system. And that's what I'm trying to put the case forward, that we've actually got quite a cutoff with those last empires, and this is new.
Completely and utterly new, a new way, completely new way of thinking.
Right.
Okay.
But let's find out exactly where and why things failed. And just in this episode, I want to do like a little bit of a deep dive on the Sumerians. And
Okay.
these, I think this civilization really is kind of like the genesis block of civilization itself. And do you remember me talking about what the genesis block is in the blockchain?
Yes.
Remember Satoshi had gone and put a message in the genesis block of
Yeah.
Bitcoin. Do you remember us talking about that in the last
Of
episode?
course. Yeah. Of course I do. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, basically the Sumerians really were that kind of first block of civilization. And it all kind of really started right about here, which is 3,100 or so BC.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it's all sort of started in Mesopotamia, which is often called the cradle of civilization, which is, of course, the Middle East. More specifically around this area here, between I don't know if you know the rivers of the Tigris and the Euphrates, those rivers. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
right in modern day, in the modern day world, we'd look at perhaps that being Iraq and Kuwait, Syria, Turkey, perhaps parts of Iran, and
Hmm.
that. So that's Mesopotamia, and that's where the cradle of civilization all began. Now, the Sumerians, they really started, civilization because they invented cuneiform writing on clay tablets. And this is really is kind of the first block, a little bit like the actual blockchain, but carved into clay
Okay.
blocks.
Messaging.
Right, right. But it wasn't art or poetry they were putting there. It was accounting. It was kind of like grain rations, temple taxes, debt, specifically debt records.
Okay.
They basically centralized power by controlling who kept the books, right? The accountancy books and
And
scribes.
invented debt by the sound of things.
Right, to a certain degree, absolutely.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so the scribes were the kind of the first bureaucrats, and they became so powerful they literally ran society. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, like you say, the first written word, Dave, it wasn't like history. It wasn't like
Yeah.
their history. It wasn't love or war. It was basically debt.
It wasn't hello, it was you owe me this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Wow, that's shocking, mate. But yeah, you can see where our current administrations are getting all this from.
Exactly.
Keep us all in
But
debt, mate. Keep us all in fear.
exactly. But by 2000 BC, the Sumerian city-states were overextending themselves. It was
Okay.
very much top-heavy centralization. the temple and the palace elites were trying to extract too much from farmers. Sound familiar? Right.
Very.
Yeah. So
We're not one of
basically,
those channels, though, are we? Well,
mm,
kind of.
maybe. But
Go
yeah,
on.
these debt crises were kind of crushing ordinary citizens. Um, but the peasant farmers, there are stories having to sell their children into slavery just to cover tax and debt. And you could kind of see how the scribes had run away with the power, right? This
Yeah,
happens
yeah.
time and time again, when we have these centralized systems. And that's what I'm trying to put forwards in all of these
It
empires, Dave.
it's incredible. It's incredible. You go back 5,000 years and you've got the same problems. We haven't bloody learned anything.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
So there are actual stories in the tablets themselves of which recorded basically jet debt jubilees, where some of the rulers were periodically erasing debts altogether just to stop society from imploding in the final years.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
yeah, student loan forgiveness or anything like that. Right.
Amazing, incredible.
But eventually, these kind of weakened city states, they're kind of cracking, and eventually there was a whole lot of invaders that came in and polished off the Sumerian Empire.
Okay, listen, I've got to say something here. I don't want to interrupt your flow, Si, because this is brilliant. I'm loving this, but it seems like the Beaker people are being neglected again, and you've neglected them. And I feel really sorry for the Beaker people who brought the drinking vessel into Northern Europe, because
The Beaker.
well, the only thing that they're remembered by is like now a sort of camping cup. Let's get the Beaker people in there. They were around about 1800 BC.
Right, okay.
So
Right,
sorry about
perhaps we
that,
need to
Beaker
change the
people.
presentation.
I'm sure they
Yeah.
had some kind of similar collapse anyway.
Right.
Probably drinking, drinking problems. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
All right, mate. So when these central tablets and things were failing,
Yeah.
survival was basically shifting back to local kinship groups and the villages themselves, and it really kind of devolved back to that again. And people started to rely on barter and informal local trust networks again when the
What?
central temples couldn't protect them. Could that
Wow.
be where we are in
That's
society?
a huge parallel for me. That's really
Right.
struck a chord. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like a proto-decentralization era, I guess. This really does give us an idea that maybe history does repeat itself. It's
Yeah.
fragile. Perhaps in this case, it's fragile, easily stamped out when the next empire rose. But let's see where we are in the future. But it does show a pattern that we'll see again and again. Because when central trust collapses, the
Yeah.
people have to kind of reinvent local systems.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So Dave, I don't want to kind of shove too much into this episode, but that's where I'm kind of going to finish. And I hope we can pick this up in the second episode and see why we have the same story in the next few empires. How does that sound?
That sounds really good. I mean, I found that so interesting, and the parallels, they're just so apparent.
Yeah,
But also where we're going. When you mentioned bartering there, I immediately thought about the blockchain and how this is all going to go into the control of the people, and how
yeah,
you've been talking about, the stuff that goes on in the background with the contracts and what are they called? Smart contracts and things
right.
like that. And that to me sounds like, yeah, it sounds like perhaps we're going to end up in a little bit messy place at some point, but we have the backup, we've got the technology. Of course, we need to run it on something. We need to be able to communicate on something, which is a slight issue, but also the blockchain has a solution for that as well.
Yeah.
Very interesting, Simon. I'm really impressed with this one.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, yeah, really good. So I'm looking forward to the next one. We're going to do a few of these, right?
Right.
Okay, mate. No, I'm really impressed with that. What do you think? I mean, what's your take on the parallels between all the way back to the Sumerians to where we are now?
Yeah, again, it's these parallels in history that keep repeating. And I want to show in this series why we actually have a solution that is different and why it's going to be different. Because the blockchain really is the first time we actually have a technology that can allow us to organize ourselves as humans without the need for centralized control systems, authority systems. And every empire that's gone in the past hasn't had that luxury, hasn't had a
Okay.
technology that allows us to self-organize.
Yeah, which would illustrate clearly why things are being pushed so quickly, so hard at the moment. Because I honestly think that the powers, they know that this is coming. They know that this is the next step for humanity, and they don't want it. And they're pushing restrictions and censorship on us like nobody's business at the moment. And, I think that's why. I really think that's why.
We don't need to worry, Dave. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, mate, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Looking forward to the next one. Guys out there, if you want to subscribe and like and share our content, as always, please do that there. That's going to help us no end, and we can keep this thing going, get ourselves a little network set up and grow. And that's really important because we need to go into the decentralization age together. So thank you very much. Thank you, Si.
Thank you, Dave.